So I want to make sure that you know how welcome you are in this space. I want to thank you for joining us for the show here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. We realize and we recognize that if it were not for you, we would not be able to celebrate in just a couple of months. We would not be able to celebrate 41 years of being on the air, making sure that we bring you the information that you need to act in the ways that work for you so that you can be liberated and you can do the things that you need to do for your own life to manifest your freedom. So again, thank you. We greet you in the spirit of Salbona, that spirit of oneness that binds us together. That oneness is our humanity, and we want to make sure that we keep that at the forefront of our conversation. And you are more than welcome to join the conversation this morning. The phone lines are already open at 501-433-0088. The phone lines are already open at 501-433-0088. Give us a call. We'll be more than happy to get you on the air. I do have an announcement. Let me see what I pulled from Facebook the other day. It is a community conversation that I want to tell you about. Yes, it is July 26th. So today is the 24th. So this is Saturday, July 26th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The People's Campaign is hosting a Canvas and Chill at the D. Brown Library located at 6325 Baseline Road in Little Rock 72209. You can engage with the community. You can enjoy refreshments and music. You can create community-led solutions, and you can help build the people's budget for 2026. This is Ward 2. This is happening, and it primarily affects, well, I guess it only affects Ward 2. So again, on July 26th, which is this Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, lasting until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you are invited to Canvas and Chill at the D. Brown Library, 6325 Baseline Road. Hashtag we take care of us. So I want to make sure that you know that you are invited to join that conversation as well. Hotep is on the line, still with the words Ankh, Ujab, and Seneb, life, prosperity, and health that he is wishing and granting to all of you who are listening on this morning. I do want to take a moment. I failed to do this on Tuesday, so I want to take a moment right now to hold space for Malcolm Jamal Warner. He, many of us know him as the character he played in the Cosby Show back, I think it started in the 80s, as Theo Huxtable. But his real name, his government name is Malcolm Jamal Warner. And he died earlier this week in Puerto Rico when he was vacationing with his family. He was out on the water and there was a tide that pulled him under, and he was not able to conquer that tide. And the people that jumped in to help him were not able to bring him back to life. And then the people that came, emergency people, they were not able to resuscitate him either. So he is no longer with us. So I want to make sure that we pause for just a moment, because so many of us, when we think about the Cosby Show, like regardless of, I think, and I'm fully persuaded, like I don't think anybody can convince me otherwise right now in this moment, that part of this world's design, this anti-Black world that we live in, anytime a Black person gets to be too popular, gets to be too rich, gets to be too influential, there's some external force that comes along that wants to disrupt their lives in some way, whether they want to tarnish their character, whether they want to embarrass them, humiliate them, dehumanize them, whatever that is. And so when we think about the Cosby Show, many of us may have the tendency to focus on the scandal that happened with Bill Cosby. But for me, I'm not concerned about Bill Cosby at all. I'm more concerned about the role that the Cosby Show played in our culture, Black culture in particular, in allowing us to step out of the the monolithic views of what it means to be Black. This world paints Black people as lazy, as dull, as poor, as ghetto, as hood, and like that's all that they want you to see and think about us, as dangerous and violent, all of those things. And the Cosby Show allowed us to pull back another layer to say, no, there are people in this community that live this way. And so there, with Claire Huxtable being an attorney, and then Bill Cosby's character being a doctor, and them living a middle class life, probably upper middle class, and they have children that they're caring for and going off to college, like all of those things. So allowing us to see that, to be represented in that way, was huge for us. And so that's what I want to continue to remember, rather than focus on the scandal with Bill Cosby. So Malcolm Jamal Warner, that was his breakout role at 16 years old, being Theo Huxtable. So I want to pause and celebrate his life, and just have a moment of silence for him. And then I also thought about Venus Williams. Shout out to her, being the oldest woman to win in Wimbledon, whatever the tennis tournament she was in. I think it was Wimbledon. So shout out to her. So yet another way of watching the genius of Blackness unfold right before our very eyes. So you've got arts with Malcolm Jamal Warner. You've got sports with Venus Williams. Just so all of the different ways that we show up to continue to carry this world. We built it and we continue to carry it. We built it after the land was stolen from First Nation people. I do also want to take a moment to let you know that I have run into a snag as it relates to Parkview Towers, and I think I might need some help. So the person who's running, Joe Hatchett, the person who's running, who's working in the office at Parkview Towers, she is the one that I take issue with, that I want to, that I'm challenging her authority in that place. That's my goal, to challenge that authority and see what change. I don't want to name what change I'm trying to make. I want to see what change can be made. And so I knew that I could not talk to her because she is irrational. But I wanted to say, so I'm thinking that Parkview Towers is owned by a corporation. That's what I was thinking. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I just need to talk to her supervisor. So let me just find out who that is. And so I looked up, I thought I was looking up the corporation, and I found out that it is a nonprofit. So as a nonprofit, then it's going to have a board of directors. And so I was, oh, okay, well, let me just look up the board of directors, and I'll just reach out to them. And so I looked up the board of directors, and when I looked up on GuideStar is a website that you can go to learn about the. Primarily, I go on GuideStar to learn about to see the 990, the form that nonprofit organizations have to file. It is a requirement that they file the 990 that helps us see the money, and so how much the organization makes, how much they are spending, that kind of thing. And so when I went on GuideStar to look up the 990 so that I could find the board of directors, it said that there was no board of directors. Like, there's no board. I'm like, that's not possible. You cannot have a nonprofit without having a board. A board has to have at least 3 members. And so I was about to I'm like, okay, well, I need to fight right here. But then I kept looking, and I did find, I finally found a board of directors, but I'm not really sure how this is working. So I want to get in touch with them. I haven't been able to find them. So I want to name the people who are listed as directors on, and I'm assuming that they're only listed as directors. I'm assuming that's board of directors for the Parkview Towers, and it is Lloyd Black, Danny Knight, Bobby Lester, Donna Morey, Diana Glaze, George Hopkins, and Zach Nicholson. Again, those names are Lloyd Black, Danny Knight, Bobby Lester, Donna Morey, Diana Glaze, George Hopkins, Zach Nicholson. If any of you know any of those people and can connect me, that would be great, because I don't think that I can, because it's Joe Matchett. I said Joe Hatchett, who is, I think that's the one who works in the office. She's listed as the principal officer of the nonprofit. So that means she runs the board too. So I'm trying to figure out how to circumvent this system that she has created that's protecting her and allowing her to abuse the residents there emotionally and psychologically. I don't know anything about physically. And so if you know, so maybe now what I need to do is find an individual that I can talk to, because I don't think that I'll be able to appeal to the board because of her influence over the board. So that's the snag that I've run into in trying to see if I can't again work to affect some kind of change in leadership at Parkview Tower. So if you all know any of those people, help me out. You can hit me up at 228-236-7440. Again, my direct line is 228-236-7440. Also want to talk a minute about William McNeil Jr., who was assaulted in Florida by a police officer. He was stopped. It was a traffic stop, and William McNeil Jr. wanted to exercise his rights as a citizen in America, so that he wanted to know why he was being stopped. And he wanted to, just have a conversation. And that went completely left for him. And he ended up getting punched in they busted out his window, punched him in the face, dragged him out of the car, put him on you can watch the whole video. They had his face, like you could see them planting his face in the pavement. Like it hurt when I was watching it, so I can only imagine how it felt for him. And so I want to remind us in this world, I want to remind all of us, but particularly people who are members of the African diaspora, those of us who are Black, that you don't have any rights. I know that the Constitution says these are your rights. I know that. But the world, the law of the land in this country does not recognize you as having any rights. And so you have to make a decision when you are interacting with law enforcement about how you want to fight. So William McNeil Jr. chose to fight with his mouth. He wanted to use his mouth to stand up for himself and assert his rights, because that is what he is well able to do as a citizen. However, that does not work for Black folks. And we see this playing out over and over and over again. And so even though it makes us feel some kind of way, well, I don't want to speak for anybody else. Even though for me as a Black person, it absolutely makes me feel some kind of way to have to comply, to have to bite my tongue, to have to swallow my pride in the face of law enforcement. I realize, and I want you to also realize, that our mouths are not the only way that we can fight. The number one weapon we have is our brain. So in those moments, we have to think, what is the best way for me to handle this situation? And it is not to assert your rights, because the law, police officers do not recognize your rights. They don't care about your rights. They don't honor your rights. So that doesn't work. So let's not do that. You don't have it. It really would be better if you walked around thinking and realizing and understanding you don't have any rights. Like if you thought with that, I mean, if that was in the forefront of your mind, that would be better. And then we could use your brain. So don't do whatever they say do, and then make sure you leave the situation, you get out of the situation. Now let's strategize. Now let's think. Now let's plan. Let's organize. Let's mobilize to figure out how we are going to how we're gonna file some kind of grievance, sue, whatever it is we're gonna do. So I want to remind you of that you don't have any rights that are going to be honored in this land. So not as a Black person, and we continue to see that play out. And I do also want to let you know that the reason that the police officer said that he stopped William McNeil Jr. was because he said he didn't have his headlights on in inclement weather. He said you didn't have that it was kind of foggy outside and he didn't have his lights on, and so that's why he was stopped. And I said to myself, like, I didn't know that was a law. I'm like, is that a law? Like, I didn't know that was a law. So I looked it up. And generally speaking, like across, I guess across the whole United States, and we believe in states' rights. They instituted states' rights so that they could give the states permission to continue to exercise continue to enforce enslavement. So the states' rights issue has always been something that comes up. So I don't know if every state does this or not, but generally speaking, yes, you do have to turn on your headlights. They are required during inclement weather. That is a law. And in Arkansas, it is also a law. I wanted to make sure I looked it up again because of the states' rights. Different states can have different laws. And so in Arkansas, I wanted to look up, is that a law in Arkansas? Yes, it is a law in Arkansas. However, it is considered a secondary law in Arkansas, which means that cannot be the primary reason that you get pulled over. Now, they can pull you over for something else and add to it the fact that you don't have your lights on in your headlights on in inclement weather, but that cannot be the primary reason. So here we are. I don't know the law in Florida, um, um, but knowing your rights, I want you to know what your rights are. However, I also want you to think clearly about how to assert your rights, because in some situations, it's not worth it not to do it with your mouth, not to do it through resisting, not to do it in that way. It's better to walk away alive and then let us strategize together to figure out what to do. And so I just wanted to make sure I gave you that information so that you can be aware, especially as Black folks, that you do not have, that this world does not see you as a citizen. America does not recognize you as a citizen, and and it continues to show us that. And so we have to shift in our mindset about how we respond to America, because many of us are still hoping and wishing and praying that America will embrace us as human, and that is not what America is willing to do right now. And so we have to govern ourselves accordingly. And so Lowe said all he had to do was flash them and he would have turned them on. Well, he said so Lowe says all he had to do was flash them and he would have turned them on. I'm not sure about that, because if I flash my lights, they're just going to come on and go right back off. So I don't know. Maybe that depends on the kind of car you have. I just drive a 2014 Toyota Camry. So those of you who drive luxury cars that are newer models, like maybe that's how it works for you. And if you have that experience, shout out to us and let us know, 501-433-0088, because we want to make sure that you have the correct information so that you can you have the best information to make the best decisions for your own life. So that would not work for me, but maybe it would work for somebody else. So I wanted to make sure, so those are just some preliminary things that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned on today to try to keep us safer. Cannot guarantee anybody's safety, but I want to make sure that we are safer. Caller, you're live on the air at KABF at 8.3. Thanks for calling.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to clear something up. You might not have understood. The lady who sent you the message saying that all he had to do was flash his light. Excuse me. I think she was talking about the police officer. All he had to do was flash his light to alert the brother that his lights weren't on. And once he flashed his lights, the brother might know that his lights weren't on. Then the brother would turn his lights on.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know, like we do when we want to let somebody know that the cops are there. Like we give you a signal. Yeah, I get you.
Exactly. And another thing I was going to say, I think you said the Arkansas law says that the secondary law,
yes.
You can't stop someone for, but I was thinking like this: if their lights are not on, and I feel that the police could stop him, but just come in and say, "Sir, the reason I'm stopping you is because your headlights aren't on, and it's Arkansas law, blah, blah, blah. So please turn them on and have a good day." And that's it. You know what I mean? Because how would they know that their lights weren't on if the guy didn't stop him outside of flashing lights? And that's all I wanted to say. And thank you for the show. I enjoy it all the time.
I appreciate you calling.
You.
Oh, I didn't mean to hang up. I think he was saying you're welcome. So I appreciate you, caller. Yes. So low chimes in and says yes. So the driver that does not have the lights on can turn them on when flash. So yes. So low, the caller and low are on the same page. I misunderstood that when you don't have your lights on, then somebody flashes to let you know, and then you turn them on. I agree that that is great. That's a great idea. However, if you don't know that your lights are supposed to be turned on, I would think that you're signaling to me something else. Maybe you tell, like I said, maybe you're telling me that it's a cop down the street. Because I know when we're on the highway, especially people will signal from the other side of the highway. At least that's what I used to do. That's what I've experienced in the past. So we're trying to let you know. We're trying to warn you to slow down or whatever it is. So I'm not sure because I did not know that it was the law to have the lights on in inclement weather. I'm not sure somebody flashing their lights would have made me think that. And so that's why I wanted you to be aware of the law. And then when the caller says it would have been so human for the police officer to say, hey, I noticed that you didn't have your lights on. I stopped you because you should have your lights on. I want you to be as safe as possible because remember, we're here to serve and protect. And we want to protect you in this weather. Like that would have been a very human thing to do. And that's actually what William McNeil Jr. tried to do. He wanted to have a conversation. When he is pulled out and he's being arrested, that's what he's saying. He's like, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. But the officer does not want any black person. And when I say the officer, I'm not talking about just white people, the system of law enforcement. So it can be a black person. Do not think that a black person in uniform is your kinfolk because they work in a system that is anti-black. And so it doesn't matter. Whoever the law enforcement officer is does not want a black person to resist them. How dare you ask me a question? Even if you're asking me because William McNeil Jr. asked for his supervisor. How dare you assert yourself? How dare you speak up for yourself? How dare you know your rights? They are not in that makes their blood boil. You being uppity now. You think you somebody now, right? And so it did not work. So to expect to have a human conversation, I don't think is the right way to go. Now, does that mean that there are not officers who would have had a human conversation with them? I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm saying is you need to lead with the fact in mind that probably it's highly probable that you're going to find one that doesn't want to have the conversation rather than thinking that maybe this one will. So I just want to I just want to say those things. So thank you, caller. Thank you, Lo, for helping us think about our safety as it relates to driving and knowing the law in Arkansas and beyond. I should have looked at the law in Florida, but I was like, we in Arkansas. So, but people are listening from all over. Yeah, that's what I should have done. Okay, so I want you to know why I want to have this conversation this morning, why I chose the song War by Edwin Starr. He says in the part of the song that I want to focus on is when he says, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. So he's talking about the actual phenomenon of war where we send people off to fight each other and shed blood on land. And we have this whole enterprise, this whole industry that works together to make sure that we can conquer whoever it is we're trying to conquer, whether it's America trying to conquer somebody. Like, I don't know. I personally feel like all of the war is about power anyway. They say that we're fighting for one thing, but really it's about power. And then my brother, who is a veteran, he's a Marine, he says that it's really more about money. So if you want to know what the cause of the war is, like why we're fighting, then follow the money. And so Edwin Starr way back says, war, what is it good for? The only person who's going to benefit from war is an undertaker, because the only thing that happens through war is that lives are taken. Even if you don't lose your life physically, when we think about the number of veterans who come home from a war with PTSD, who come home from the war differently abled, who come home from the war who are now neurodiverse because their brain has been affected by what they've seen and what they've experienced, then that's a different kind of death that also takes place. And so when Edwin Starr says the only person who wins in this case is death, the only thing that wins. In this case, it's death. So what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And so I want to take that line, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And lift it up out of the song and apply it to us as people, and particularly us as Black folks. And I want to ask us, what are we good for? And I want to suggest that the answer is, as the song says, absolutely nothing. Now, let me be clear. I am not at all talking about I'm not assessing the goodness of our character. So I'm not asking if we have good hearts, if we have good minds, if we are skilled, if we are educated. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, think about in terms of food. Let's think about in terms of food. When you say, somebody says, I want breakfast, and say, oh, we ought to go to IHOP because they're good for pancakes, right? So everybody knows if you want a good pancake, then you need to go to IHOP. Or for me, if I ever decide that I want a hamburger, I want to go to Burger King because they good for the Impossible Whopper. Like anybody that wants a plant-based option, they say, I would rather go to Burger King. That's where I'm going to choose because they good for this plant-based option called the Impossible Whopper. Now, just as an aside, the Impossible Whopper is not any more healthy than the regular Whopper. We just think it is, because by the time they get through cooking it and putting all the toppings on it, you might as well have ordered a regular burger. But so let me just say that. But that's where I go, because they good for that. Or somebody says, oh, I want seafood. Say, oh, let's go to Red Lobster because they good for that, right? That's the context I'm setting this in. What are we good for? And I'm suggesting that the answer is absolutely nothing, because I'm wondering how we are positioning ourselves to fight these systems that are plaguing us with violence, with dehumanization, with degradation, with trauma. Like, what are we good for in response to all of that? What are we going to be known for when our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren look back on this particular time, this particular era in history? What are they going to say we were good for? Those of us who are fighting against, those of us who recognize the system at work in our face, that's playing out in our face. Like, what are they going to say we were good for? That's what the question is. And right now, I feel like the answer is absolutely nothing, because I don't think that we are raising up in the proper ways, I don't want to say proper, in effective ways to fight what's happening. And the reason that I'm thinking about that is because I read the article. Many of you probably read the article too, about Sharp County, in Sharp County in Arkansas. They are working right now to construct an all-white town. It's going to be in Sharp County. And they already have corporations on board. I think they've already started. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they've already started. And they want this white town. And if you ask them the reason why, there's this white man who was a spokesperson who's saying that, that white people are under attack, and white people need to be able to be need to be in the position to live the way that the founders intended for them to live in this Christian land. Like, all of this false narrative that he's spewing out of his mouth to justify why they want to have this white town. And so I wonder how you all feel about that. Like, I really am not tripping right now. Like, in this moment, I'm not tripping about the fact that they want a white town. Sometimes I feel like integration hurt us because there was no way that we could know the unintended consequences of integration. I don't think there's anything wrong with our elders saying that we ought to be able to live in a country. We ought to be able to live in a community. We ought to be able to live in a society that recognizes the humanity of every person, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their educational status, regardless of their socioeconomic status. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with our elders saying, it's crazy for this not to be a real thing, and we're going to fight to make it happen. We're going to fight to be seen as equal because we are not inferior. Where did y'all get that idea from? If you can vote, I can vote. If you can eat here, I can eat here. If you can drink out this water fountain, I can drink out of this water fountain. I'm not even understanding what this is. I don't even understand why this is a thing. So I get that part of the conversation, and me personally, will be forever grateful for them choosing to put their lives on the line so that I am able to live as free as I can in this moment, which is freer than they were in their moment. So I'm not arguing that at all. So that's why I said it's unintended consequences, because I think at some point there was this idea that the reason we wanted to be equal was because we wanted to be like white people, because being like white people meant that we would be right. And so the closer we can get to whiteness, the closer we can get to that system that allows them to do stuff. If we can do the same things, then we will be like them. And that's what we want. We want to be like them. Not like being equal to them, but being white. I want to be able to do what they do. And so some kind of way that got skewed, like there's a thin line between what we're talking about right now. And so we've equated, this fight for freedom with the fight towards being more white. And that's where we got messed up. And so that's what caused us, once integration happened, then that thought process of getting as close to whiteness as possible, that philosophy is what led us to then walk away from our neighborhoods, walk away from our businesses. I'm not talking about the ones that were bombed by the government. I'm not talking about the ones that were systematically destroyed by the community leaders. I'm talking about the ones that the barbershops we could have still gone to and we chose not to. Well, maybe not a barbershop, but some kind of store. And so the unintended consequences have really had a huge effect on us as Black people in particular, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, theologically, in all of those aspects. And so when I hear people talk about how they grew up in an all Black neighborhood where everybody in this neighborhood was living Black in all of the different ways that you could see Blackness represented. So you might go walk down a street, and on that street, you might have had an educator, a teacher. You might have also had a doctor who lived on that street, with a carpenter who lived on that street, with a plumber who lived on that street, with a caregiver who lived on that street, with a domestic worker who lived. Like, you could see Blackness represented in all of these ways, which allowed you as a Black person to say, oh, I can do it. Like, there's no separation here. Like, I am excellent. I see excellent around me. I see another contingent around me that may not be excellent. So now I have a choice, and no, I'd rather do this than do that. And so when I talk about, when I sit and hear the stories about how they laughed together and played together and how the community came together, like all of that stuff, I'm like, man, I wish I had that. Like, I wish I had that kind of communal hug that I could get every day when I walked home, when I got home in my neighborhood, in my community. So I'm not sure that I'm mad about somebody saying that I want to be around my people, because I know for me, there are times when I walk into spaces and I'm like, is there not anywhere that I can go where it's just us? And usually the answer is no. Whereas I know that other populations of people, they can go plenty of places where it's just them. So I'm not really arguing that right now. That's not my argument about these people choosing to want this space to themselves. Now, the reason why, yeah, I can take issue with that, but that's not my point right now. My point right now is that according to the 2020 census, according to the 2020 census, there are 114 Black folks that live in Sharp County. Now, we know for a fact that not everybody fills out the census. We know for a fact, especially with this last census, how it's used and weaponized against us, so that many of us don't even dare try to fill it out. So I don't believe that these numbers are right. It's probably more Black people than that, I would say. but we know from the 2020 census, we can definitely say there were at that time 114 blacks. So my question is, if you are if you are constructing a white community, an all white community, in a space where there are 114 black folks living, what are you going to do with those 114 black folks? That's what I want to know. Because when we think historically about how you want to rid, how you want to purge the land, how you want to create something that's pure as the system of white inhumanity, you will do anything. You will take any evil step to get rid of black folks. And so we got 114 bodies right now on the line in Sharp County who I'm trying to figure out what is their recourse. And so when I'm asking myself, I start with myself first, and now I'm asking you, what are we prepared to do in this moment to safeguard those 114 lives? What are we good for in this moment as it relates to those 114 lives? And that's why I said the answer right now for me would be absolutely nothing, because what structure do we as Black people in particular, but as humans in general in Arkansas, what kind of system have we set up to say, no, 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 no. This is what's not going to happen to these lives that are worthy to be treated as human. So Lowe says, the Caucasian from a historical perspective has not recognized the concepts of humanity. The European ideology has always been conquer or be conquered. Let me just read that again. The Caucasian from a historical perspective has not recognized the concept of humanity. The European ideology has always been conquer or be conquered. Okay, well, let's go with that. If that's the ideology of Europeans, and these white folks say that, that's how they trace themselves back, then they're gonna conquer because they want this all white community, but you got 114 black folks living there. If their mindset is to conquer them because they definitely don't expect to be conquered, then who's gonna protect these 114 bodies? I'm sure there may be more, but right now we know from the 2020 at least, there's 114. And so I was thinking about that. Like, what are we good for right now in this moment as it relates to these 114 bodies? What is history gonna say that we did? How did we show? Like, when I think back, again, going back, when I think back to the many massacres and the traumas, the trauma against Black bodies in our past, I think back to the Black Panthers. And the Black Panthers decided, hey, we're going to organize and we're going to patrol ourselves. We're going to get in uniform. We're going to get in formation with our uniforms. We're going to be armed and we are going to be visible. And we're going to let you know that we're not scared of you. We are going to protect our community. We're going to protect ourselves. We're going to protect our property. That's what we're going to do. So they were good for protection. And not only just protection, but the Black Panther Party is what set up the food program. Like, we are going to protect the lives in every aspect that we could think of, how we are able to resource ourselves to take care of our community. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to be visible. We're going to be unapologetic, and we're going to be seen, and we're going to be heard, and we're not going to back down. Like, that's what the Black Panther Party is good for. What are you good for? They were good for showing up to protect and provide. I can see that clearly through history. But then we think about, so that's one avenue we could take. Like, we could show up to protect, like the Black Panther Party did. Then when you think about Tulsa, the massacre in Tulsa, when they realized that, when the Black folks, the Black community learned that the white folks were coming for them, they were like, oh, okay, we know what to do. And so especially those that were veterans, but it wasn't just veterans, but especially those that were trained in the military, they got themselves together, they organized, and they mobilized. They marched down the street to confront the violence. Like, oh, so you want to go toe-to-toe? We'll go toe-to-toe. And I am fully persuaded that the only reason that we did not come out on top is because we ran out of ammunition. And the ammunition was being supplied to them by the government. Like, we were outgunned I don't necessarily want to say we were outnumbered, but we were outgunned. We were outnumbered through the different avenues that they were using to get their ammunition, and we could not fight that battle. But we said, come on, let's fight. And so that's another avenue that we can take where we just confront it head on. We go down there and we say, listen, this is what y'all not gonna do. There's no way you can declare that you're gonna make this an all white county and you got 114. You better go find some land somewhere else. But you're not gonna uproot, you're not gonna disrupt these laws. We're not gonna let you do it. And we're coming down here and we're gonna confront you head on. We're gonna change these, we're gonna change whatever we have to change, whatever we have to do, we're gonna confront it because we're not afraid of it, because that's how we're going to show up for our community that we could take, that we see that was of use in history through Tulsa. Or there's another option on the table. We can go the Ida B. Wells route. Ida B. Wells at the time was run out. She's too busy. I don't want to say she was too busy. They felt like she was too busy writing about what was happening, writing about the lynchings and making it known and publishing it and distributing the publication so that everybody could know. She was raising awareness of what was happening to Black bodies. She was using the gift of writing. She was using media to fight. So we got the Black Panther Party said we're using protection and provision. You got the Tulsa contingent that says we're going to confront it head on. And you got Ida B. Wells says we're going to use the media. As successful as she was doing that with the newspaper back in the day, think about how successful we could be if we're using social media. So now we use social media to show everybody how Black people get killed by the cops. Like we play that over and over and over again. And it is effective for a lot of stuff, but one of the ways that it has been effective is desensitizing us to the point that now they've used social media in that way for so long, so many times that we don't even think about it anymore. It's like, oh, here we go. As a matter of fact, some of us don't even watch it. Like, I don't even want to watch that. So it's not being effective in mobilizing us around resisting this system and fighting against it and showing up in the ways that we need to show up. We know that it works because all of the people who were participating in the No Kings protest, that was happening all across the country in different states on the same day. That kind of organization was happening using social media. So we know that it works. The only problem I have with it is that there were no tangible actions that went along with it. The strategic planning of it was more about the showing up piece rather than the following through piece. And so, yes, we want to show up and say we don't want to live in a world where there are no more kings. Okay, well, if that's the case, what are we demanding? And if these are our demands, who's in charge of the demands? And who's in charge of, like, who are you, like, where's the think tank? Like, where are we gathering for this? Like, well, how are we going to make this happen? And so when I ask the question, what are we good for? Right now, when I think about it, I'm like, absolutely nothing, because I don't know anybody who's ready to go down to Sharp County and patrol the neighborhood to make sure that these 114 bodies are safe. I don't know anybody who's willing to go down and confront them head on in Sharp County. I don't know anybody who's willing to say, I want to take up this charge and lead a social media campaign. Like, I don't know. So what are we good for when it comes to making sure that our walk matches our talk? Because there are a lot of us talking about what the white people are doing to us. There are a lot of us talking about how tired we are, and we quoting Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. There are a lot of us that are doing a lot of that talk, but how is it being lived out? Like how is the community experiencing our presence in this moment when we see these things happening? Are we just going to step back? Like, are we just not going to do anything and say, oh, okay, well, that's what they're doing in Sharp County. I live in Pulaski, so I'm not worried about it. And then it might be that none of these things are possible, right? It might be that we need to come up with, like, confronting may not work. Social media may not work. Patrolling may not work. Okay, well, what will work? Where's the think tank that's figuring out what will work? Like, what are we doing? What are we going to do? Are we going to do anything at all? And so that's why I wanted to use Edwin Starr, because he says, what are we good for? And that's the question that I have. What are we good for? Now, I'm willing to work in whatever capacity, um, is whatever capacity we come up with, whatever the strategy is, I'm willing to find my place in it. I was looking at so I was looking up Sharp County because I wanted to know what what is this place like? Like, I can only imagine this small rural county in Arkansas. I can only imagine what that's like. And of course, all of the leaders there are Republican. They are all white, and so that means that there's a heavy influence um, that could easily overwhelm the 114 people that are living there, because that's not many people. And so I could see how they need some outside help, and that would be us. It reminds me of a video that one of the community members sent me. There was this woman from Africa. She was talking about how in Africa there's a lot of Chinese development happening. Well, the Chinese are developing a lot of things in Africa, and she's saying that the Africans are despondent about it. They're mad about it. They're raising hell about it. And she said, but her question was, but what y'all gonna do? Because we're not in a position to do anything. We can't do what the Chinese are doing. We don't have any of the We don't control any of the resources. We don't have any of the. We don't have the same mechanisms in place. Like, what can we do? So she was calling us. She was saying, those of you who are members of the diaspora in America, we need you over here. We need you over here to come and help us so that we can take control of our community and have the one true community of the diaspora. That's what she was saying. And as I was listening, I was like, that sounds so good. It did convict me for a moment, because I'm like, you know what? I could be doing something over in Africa, but it only convicted me for a moment, because I'm like, how you gonna call for the Black people from America to come help y'all in Africa when we're not helping ourselves in America? What you think we gonna do? And so I feel like that's the same thing happening where Sharp County, these 114 bodies, we really can't expect them to do it themselves. They need us to show up. Are we willing to do that? Like, or are we like, girl, look, we trying to figure it out in Pulaski. Y'all gonna have to do something. Is that our mindset? What are we gonna be good for in this moment? So Lowe reminds us that evil flourishes when good people do nothing. Evil flourishes when good people do nothing. I wonder who the good people are. How do you define good? Because I think a lot of people think that they are good when maybe you're not exactly good. Just because you go to church don't mean you good. Just because you pay your tithes don't mean you good. Just because you voted Democrat don't mean you good. Just because you give to charity don't make you good. Like, um, yeah, but I think your point is that those of us who are able, who are conscious enough to realize that here is an opportunity for us to do something, for us to show up, for us to be good for something, then we ought to take it rather than sit back and then later on wonder, why didn't anybody else do it? Why they ain't do anything? Like, why didn't somebody show up? Why didn't somebody do what they were what those people needed to be done? Here's Low again. It is your actions to your fellow person that dictates good. Okay, I asked you to define good, and your definition is good is defined by your actions to your fellow person. That's what dictates good. And so for me, it's like, okay, if that's the case, you're just really asking us to be human. Like, can we be human with each other? Can we recognize your humanity? Can we see that your life is on the line right now and show up as a human to say, here's what we're not going to do to another human. This is how we are not going to treat another human. Like, can we just see that lens? And so that's what the spirit of Salbona asks us to do. Salbona says that we should be living in a spirit of oneness, that there is nothing that divides us according to our humanity. Every division that we experience in this world is something made up by man, by humanity. Humans made it up. The organism of humanity, the design of humanity, the creation of humanity did not include these separators. It did not include these dividers. It did not include these identities. The systems of the world created them because you can go back to what Lo said about the ideology that says that we're going to conquer or be conquered. And so we're going to fight. We're going to make sure that we are the conquerors. And the ideology that says we can conquer you because you are less than, because you Black or you're melanated. That ideology is not what the design was all about. That's something we instituted. And that's what we are fighting against. So the spirit of Salbona says, when you look at me, you ought to see you. When you look at a Black child, you ought to see a white child, a non-white child, a Hispanic child, a non-Hispanic child. You ought to just see a child. And you ought to say children ought to be able to live in an environment that's free of violence. Children ought to be able to live in an environment where they are not hungry. Children ought to be able to live in an environment that supports their excellence and tries to make sure that they reach the height of their potential. That's just for children, period. Because they're children. Not because they're a certain kind of child, but because they're children. And we haven't gotten to that point. And so what are we good for? I want somebody to say, I'm saying absolutely nothing, but I want somebody to say, no, Denise, you're wrong. I'm, you know what? I'm offended that you would say we're not good for anything. Let me tell you what we're good for. Let me know. I want to hear it. Again, 228-236-7440. You can hit me up offline. You can call the office and leave a message with Charles, 501-372-6119. You can wait until I'm on the air again on Tuesday, 501-433-0088. I would love to hear your response, your answer to the question, what are we good for? Because right now I'm saying absolutely nothing, because we're not showing up in the ways that we need to protect all bodies, but particularly those bodies that are most under threat, which are Black people in this anti-Black world, and immigrants. My goodness, how you are under attack right now. What are we good for in these moments? That's the question for us to ponder, and the answer I'm waiting to hear. So thank you so much for joining us for thank you so much for joining us for the workplace right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. On Monday, you can, I think on Sunday, listen for a Brother Wayne show. On Monday, you got Down with Dead with Neil and Toney at 4:00. On Tuesday, you got Community Voices from 9 to 10 a.m. On Wednesday, you've got Arkansas Talks from 9 to 10 a.m. On Thursday, you've got The Workplace from 9 to 10 a.m. And then on Saturday, you've got the Beauty and Barbershop from 9 to 10 a.m. I got to learn some of the other shows so I can shout them out too. Shout outs, just don't touch the dial. Just leave it right there all the way to the left at 88.3 FM KABF, so that you can hear all of the music, all of the talk shows, all of the educational tidbits that we have to offer you, so that you can make the very best decisions that govern your life. Because if we are going to live in a world that is more just, that is more inclusive, that is more peaceful, that is more equitable, we have got to learn how to live and love differently. We'll see y'all soon. Bye now. Serving Arkansas, this is Community Radio.